So what is this? This is how to apply yourself. And how many of you all have applied for a grant before? A few. It can be tricky. Grants always seemed really intimidating to me. In my professional development, we didn't learn about grants. That wasn't part of our professional development at all. And I know a lot of practicing artists who have been working for a long time that are still like, WTF about grants? What the heck is this? And so this is an opportunity that we just want to back it up and try to demystify the artist grant. Specifically with regards to this grant, which operates in many ways very differently than even standard grants that you might have gone for before. We want to make it as accessible and as equitable, inclusive as possible. That is one of our values and a way in which we approach our granting and panel processes. So first, let's talk about it. Next slide. You're like, who's this guy with this orange background? That's me. My name is David Wayne Reed. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am the constituent engagement specialist, and I am so privileged to work in artist services at Mid-America Arts Alliance. We are one of the only regional arts organizations in the country that has an artist services department, which means we are here to service artists and their needs. What I think is particularly cool about our artist services department is that we are all working, practicing artists who apply for grants, sometimes get grants, oftentimes get rejected for grants and opportunities. We are, as Brene Brown might say, we are in the arena. We are not gatekeepers because we are on the grounds. We are groundskeepers. This is a image on the other side of my face is from my most recent film, Land and Flower, which honors and eulogizes the landscape of the tallgrass prairie ecosystem. That's my mom's hand holding up a bouquet of prairie flowers, currently playing on PBS. And that's a little about me. Next slide, I want to take the opportunity to introduce you to two of the coolest people I know, colleagues and friends, Kyle Mullins and Jade Osborne, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Okay, we'll go right to left. I'm Jade Osborne. My pronouns are she, her, and we, and I am a performing artist from the Kansas City area. And I'm working alongside Kyle Mullins. We are in charge of the granting programs, specifically Catalyze. So we're here to answer questions, to let you know who we are, to see the faces. And more than likely, if you're talking to anyone about this program, it's one of us. So we're happy to be here with you.
Jade. Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Mullins, he, him, and I'm also phoning in today from Kansas City, Missouri. I'm an artist services program officer here at Mid-America Arts Alliance. And as Jade said, we are a team of two that oversees all of the artist services programs that have grants attached to them. And one of which being this brand new program called Catalyze, which we are so excited to be bringing to Central Arkansas. This is a really exciting program and a very thrilling moment for us as the artist services team. And we're just so excited to get to know the artists in your region better. So thank you, David, for having us both here today.
Thank you for being here. And Jade and Kyle will be able to pop in and ask some questions. And as we move through, maybe mark questions, use the chat space for questions. Both Kyle and Jade will be monitoring that while I'm talking, and we're also going to have some time at the end for questions and answers. So let's get started. Next slide. So Catalyze is our program that provides grant funding and professional development to individual artists of all disciplines in Central Arkansas. I hope that you see your county in the image to the left there, but I can remember it's 16 counties I tell myself it's a sweet 16, Cleveland, Conway, Faulkner, Garland, Grant, Hot Spring, Jefferson, Lone Oak, Perry, Pope, Prairie, Pulaski, Saline, Van Buren, White, and Yell. We are from Mid-America Arts Alliance, and again, this is made with support from the Windgate Foundation. What we believe in and what we do in a lot of our grant programs is not only giving money, but we combine money and mentorship and help artists not only expand what is possible for their art by giving money, but also getting you connected with other artists and getting peer support. And we have found in our history of doing this, it builds sustainable careers for artists while also building and fortifying art communities. We've seen this happen with our 360 program that we've done in Northwest Arkansas since 2018, and the ripple effects and the impacts of combining both money, mentoring, and management. It's palpable and so powerful, and a big part of our methodology. Next slide. So 3 tiers, you see those 3 little rings that are part of our logo. That's based off of those 3. Oh, great, Dextra, right. And Artist Inc. So this, you might notice some of this, sure, step up. So in our 3 rings, one is, hey, it's money. It's $10,000 practice-based grants that will go to individual artists. These are practice-based grants. These are not project-based. For most grants, you say, I'm going to do a film about the erasure of the native tallgrass prairie, and this is how I'm going to do it and who I'm going to do it with. This is focused on your practice. You are not proposing a project to us. That's very different about this grant. We also, the second ring is that of professional development. It is a requirement to, if you are selected to attend a retreat, it is an all-paid retreat. We will feed you, we will lodge you in Little Rock in June. I'll get to those specific dates down the way. That is a requirement. And so if you do have a niece who's getting married, you're getting married, you have a hip surgery, something that's scheduled around that time, never fear, we're going to be back next year. Over the next 2 years, we're planning on giving $500,000 to individual artists in Central Arkansas. That's happening, and that's incredible. And then the third ring is mentoring. So you will not only just get to talk to us or the 5 facilitators that will be a part of this weekend retreat. We have artist peer facilitators working in pretty much every single discipline all across our region and beyond. And they are the backbone of all of our professional development programs because, as I said, we are artists working on behalf of artists, and that is the model. It's not being teachers or gatekeepers or this hierarchy. We're both on the same level, and we believe in meeting artists where they are and helping them get the needs that they have. You might have a question, Dextra, about fundraising. Well, we will have a facilitator that is maybe very pro at that. You have someone who maybe you want to work with dance and you've never worked with a choreographer before. We can connect you with those peer facilitators to help build your network as well as your knowledge base. And that's a real big part of this tripod of programming that we offer with Catalyze. Next slide. Okay, so here's where we can figure out if we're eligible or not. Are you 21 years of age by the application due date, which is February 24th? So first thing I want you to write down, the deadline is February 24th, 2023. And I hope you'll be 21 years of age by that due date. Be a full-time resident of the state of Arkansas and have established a minimum of 1 year residency by the application due date. Have you lived there in one of those 16 counties since February 24th of 2022? If you have, you are eligible. You can create work in any artistic discipline, including but not limited to dance, film, literary, music, theater, and visual art. Do you see your art reflected in those disciplines? I tell you what, most people are multidisciplinary artists. We all have just a little bit of that. And I feel this, me personally saying, but we pigeonhole ourselves into, I'm just this, I'm just this. I can't remember, I think it was Austin who was like, I've been working on canvas, but I want to transition to mural. This is a space to bring into effect, to accelerate. So be expansive in what you view as your discipline as well. Have a resume that demonstrates at least 3 years of engagement in a creative practice prior to the application due date, which is what? February 24th, 2023. Attend the Catalyze retreat, June 24th and 25th. And that'll be in Little Rock, like I said, meals and private lodging provided. We feed everyone really, really well. Be a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, or have non-resident status and provide a valid Social Security number if selected for funding. Obviously, if we give you money, we'll need your Social Security. Be in good standing with Mid-America Arts Alliance with no delinquent reports or grant documents. If you have received a grant from us before, we try to make our final reports pretty easy and pretty accessible. But if you've been a bad kid and haven't done that, but I don't think that probably counts for anyone, but I just needed to say that. And then you have also not received a grant of $1,000 or more through any other MAW granting program during its last fiscal year. Last year from July 1st to this year of June 30th. Okay, and that's another way we really want to spread the wealth. You know, I think I see it in Kansas City. I'm sure you all see it too. It's like this same person always seems to get all the things, right? You know, it's like that happens. And this is a way that we really want to distribute the wealth. That's very, very important to us. And then lastly, not be a currently enrolled student in an undergraduate or graduate program. Okay, these are the eligibility. Is everyone still eligible? Okay. All right, let's good. Oh, great. Dexter, yes.
Yeah, I didn't realize you could hear me. Okay, so I have been in my dissertation for a few years. So I'm not enrolled this semester, but I might be enrolled next semester. I'm just don't know if that is, I mean, I'm finished with all my classes and I've been finished for years, but.
What you just said is you are not currently enrolled. And what the line says is not be currently enrolled students in an undergraduate or graduate program. Okay.
And also I had a question. You mentioned the different categories of art, the film, and so mine's literary and visual art, but really what I've been doing the past few years, even though I'm still in the visual arts, is organizing public, like I had a nonprofit where I organize a lot of artists and we go out to address social issues.
Yes. And social practice definitely counts within that. And we can get into, once we get into the applications, I can address that a little bit more. Like I said, a lot of us are multidisciplinary artists enacting a lot of that. And we here are big fans of social practice work. So I think that definitely fits within the parameters of eligibility for sure. Okay, next slide. Great question, Dextra. So why do you want a grant? Why do y'all want a grant? Why does anyone want a grant? Money. I mean, come on. You want money, right? Yeah, Jade said it. We're not afraid to say it. I mean, it's $10,000. 25 artists are going to get $10,000. What would you do with the $10,000? Okay. some people just want, it's the money, but other times other people want, it's not about the money, it's about the reputation. You received a grant from this prestigious competitive process. So that elevates you, gives you a little bit more gravitas. It also can enable you to get other grants. You have successfully got a grant, you've completed this, you can use that grant to help leverage fundraising to raise more money. We don't expect anybody's practice to just be $10,000. Most people's lives cost more than $10,000 a year, right? So how could you use a grant to this Catalyze grant to even catalyze more funds? That's another way to look at grant. Look at it beyond being just $10,000, even though that's real sweet. It's money, it's also mentoring, it's network, it's how you can use it as a springboard to the next level of your self-determined success. Okay. And I just want to say quickly, if you don't get a grant, you're still a valid and incredible artist. And don't ever forget that. Okay, next slide. I think it was the benefits of the grant writing, and I kind of skipped ahead. I put this together, so I'm probably, I know too much, and so I'm knocking myself off my own game. But some of the benefits of grant writing, I saw a few hands go up of people who have written a grant before. Has everyone applied for a grant before? Yeah.
I have not ever.
Yeah, okay. If
I'm
you
raising my
haven't,
hand symbol, but I'm not sure if it's showing up.
yeah, no, I see a raised hand. Apply for a grant just to get it out of the way. Just get in there and learn the language of a grant. Don't be afraid of it because it's really intimidating. And the benefits of it is that it sharpens your focus. It helps you think. I've heard a quote, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it, but it says that writing helps clarify messy thinking. And so by even writing out what you want to do, what you believe success is, what you believe and feel about your artwork, it helps solidify getting you through some of these transitions, or when you're pivoting from one position to another, one style of artwork to another. It helps to write it down, and it gives you language that you can then use and plug into any of these grant kind of proposals. That's one big benefit. And also you get your name in front of artists. There have been opportunities that I've been turned away from that I did not get the grant, but then I've received a call from someone else saying, hey, I saw your work and I'm interested. You have to enter to win. I think it was Wayne Gretzky who said you get 100% of the shots that you don't take, right? Take a shot. And at least if you fail the first time, you've gotten your first failure out of the way. And that's still a win.
I think we have a question from David, possibly.
Yeah, sure.
I had just raised my hand and now I've got to figure out how to lower it. Sorry.
Well,
Oh, I'll do that for you.
Yeah, appreciate that though.
Problem.
I've done that before, David. All right, next. So I started out as an actor and as a writer. And once I realized, I thought grant proposals had to be a bunch of academic jargon and a lot of 25-cent words strung together that made me sound really, really important. And I can say that that's kind of a turnoff for a lot of panelists. What you're telling and what you're saying is a proposal is just a story. You're telling a story. And is it a story that you would want to hear? If you write down your story and you read it back to you and you're bored, so is everybody else. Your story should enthuse you first and foremost. And if it doesn't, listen to your gut, and that's telling you to go back and maybe reconfigure some things until it brings a sense of enthusiasm, because you can read that. You can feel that when you're on the panel side. You can also feel that when you're on the artist side. And it helped me to just think of it as a story. It took away a lot of undue stress and pressure of thinking, well, is this panelist going to think this way? Or are they going to like this? And then you go down a rabbit hole and you really please no one, least of all yourself. It becomes really confusing. And I'm telling you that from my own personal experience. So great way to frame it. All right, next slide. So I said earlier that a lot of grant proposals are different. There are definitely things that are same, but in most proposals require a budget, a timeline. We don't require that because these aren't project-based. These are your practice. So what we're asking for are your artist biography. This would be a great screenshot, but at moment, but also I'm glad to send you this entire PowerPoint at the end. So your artist biography, your artist statement, your resume or CV, your work samples, your work sample summary, which I want you to highlight because I have important information on that one, and then narrative questions. Okay, that is what is included. Those are the big asks for the Catalyze proposal that's due on February 24th at 5 p.m. All right, next, and I'll get into each of these and we'll break it on down. So bio, who are you? I mean, if that's not an existential question, I don't know what is. If someone asks you, who are you? Most of us are like, you know, and so again, it's a great way to write out who you are. I am a writer, director, and producer working in Kansas City, Missouri, and my works can be found on page, stage, and screen. I am the 7th generation farm child who identifies as LGBTQ. That's who I am in a short sentence. You don't have to model that, but that's just the example that I wanted to share just right out of the gate. Who are you? What have you done? What are some of those credentials, right? Oh, and thank you, Jade. We have files to help you, worksheets with this. So please download those and save those. Next slide. So your artist biography, it's about you. It's about your work. It's about what you have done. It's written in the third person. David Wayne Reed has done this. You know, I would never speak of myself in the third person in real life because that's ridiculous, right? But this is the place to do that. David Wayne Reed endorses this way of going about it. And, you know, the hard part about the bio is how do you condense it? Because often you're only given like 150 words. Well, I'm old enough that I've accumulated a lot of stuff. And that's not to brag, but you have to get real considerate about what you include, because if you're only given 100 words, how do you include the greatest hits and most effective, impactful things that you want people to remember about you? And so what I would suggest in this is write it all out. Write out your 500 word, who I am, 1,000 word, and then go through like it's an erasure poem and cut out or highlight only the things that are most exciting, that excite you, is a way to clear it down. I think it was Pascal who said, I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have time. Take the time to edit, right? That's where the details are. That's where the devil is. Okay, next slide. So take this seriously, take that bio, you know, this is our place to have control over our narrative. This bio that you will present, that will be used in publicity materials. And again, written in the third person, we're looking for 100 word maximum. But, when that's put up on the website or you've seen stuff that's out there, the media will just Google you and they will grab whatever information is there. And that's who you are, right? And so you have the opportunity to have real agency over your narrative. That is a little bit of a pressure, but the way journalism moves now, media moves now, it moves so quickly that it's just like grab, copy, paste, and put it back out there. So make sure that it's what you want written about you. Again, I've learned that the hard way. Next slide. So your resume or your cert CV, whereas you condense everything of your bio down to 100 words, this is where you can put everything down. Your resume is a little bit more curated. Your CV is a comprehensive history. I feel like CV is more of an academic term. Resume is totally fine. What you want to put forward. Use terminology that everyone will understand. If there are acronyms, I know I used to work for a trade association and they were like, oh, I'm a CAE and I'm a FSO or I'm a BTD. And it's like, who knows WTH that means? And so spell that out so that we know. Use reverse chronological order, your most recent entries on top. I've been on panels where I see people and the most recent work samples that they've included is from like 2014. That's not soon enough. That's not applicable anymore. Start with what is current, what is most recent. Use strong but simple design, those elaborate templates that, no shade to Etsy, but they feel like Etsy shop patterns, get real cutesy resumes. Don't do that. Make it as straightforward, the information that you want to put forward, because then it becomes distracting. And the only thing you're thinking of are these curly cues rather than the information that's relevant to your experience and to your success in receiving a grant. And then share this as a PDF. I did this on this PowerPoint right before we got started. Sometimes on Word, it will kind of jiggle things around, and it just will mess it up. Always save your Word document and always save it into a PDF to make sure that it lines up the way that you designed it. You didn't spend all those hours making it look just so to have it jangled up by Word doc. Be consistent in your formatting. Don't use a lot of too many fonts. Don't use Comic Sans. Nobody uses that. Be creative, be truthful. Don't be George Santos about it. Be truthful. And then an 11 to 12 point typeface. Sans serif is easier to read digitally. And this being the first year of this program and it being so open, I really expect that we're probably looking at upwards of 300 to 350 applications. So, when panelists go through and look at that, you want to be as streamlined and as clear as possible. Okay. I know I'm a fountain hose of information, so I keep monitoring the questions in the chat, and then we'll open up time for Q&A later. Let's move on to the next slide. So this one was hard for me, the artist statement. I was a theater major, and we just did what directors told us to do. I didn't know that we could decide that like most of my answers to any of these questions, what am I doing? I don't know. How am I doing it? I don't know. Why am I doing it? Just because. What influences me, inspires me? I don't know. Velvet Underground, maybe. I didn't have the answers for that. And it was really difficult for me. But these are the big questions to ask ourselves. And it's not a one and done. The answers that I would have asked to these questions at age 23 and the questions I answer them now at age 50 are completely different. And they should shift. They should change. But this is where you should be most thoughtful. What am I doing? I'm making literary work that engages social practice communities. How am I doing it? I don't know. Dexter, I'm not going to write out your whatever, but why am I doing it? I find like this is so important. Why are you doing it? And I loved Austin's answer. I'm doing it, or maybe I can't remember. I might be misattributing. Someone said, I wanted to make something beautiful. That's a valid and complete answer, but know why you were doing it. And then what influences and inspires you? I mentioned, I love everybody from Lou Reed to Jerry Reed. Those are some of my influences. I love abstraction. What is it that gives the panelists an idea of what you're aiming for and what you're creating? And these are the questions to answer. Next slide.
If I could,
Oh yeah, Kyle, please.
let me see what the next slide is. I just wanted to, you say it here. Never mind. Go ahead, David. You're doing great.
Well, you're always open to interject, but so this is the opportunity to describe what you make and how and why you make it. You can't believe how many applications I've read where it's until the third paragraph that I have any idea what they're even making. Right? And when you're a panelist and you're reading so many statements, get it right up in the front. Put your sexiest, most compelling sentences and what you're doing in the first paragraph. It's a little bit, I don't want to be, marketing and advertising both deserve their bad reputations, but they get clear, concise language that's understandable right at the top. And they call that idea, it's like, is that sticky? Did it stick with you? And so those are where you want to put those sticky things. I'm a jeweler, I'm a silversmith, I'm interested in social practice, and I want to make a film about it. And this is how I'm going to do it, right? Those are the things that should go in the top. And then after you've gotten my interest, after you've seduced me a little bit into this idea, then I want insight into your work. What is the trajectory? How have you pivoted from maybe going from paintings into murals? Was there an inspiration that tipped that? How has your process grown and changed? That's where it really, anybody can be a silversmith, but not everybody's going to have the silversmith background or tutelage that you've had. I shouldn't say I'm not a silversmith. I'm not going to be a silversmith. But there are a lot of actors out there. I'm an actor. What makes me special? What's the different thing? And that's where you can put those little nuances that set you apart. And again, that's a 250 word maximum. And those are big questions. So write it all out and then be aggressive with cutting and editing. Save that copy, print it off, put it in a drawer for later. You might pull it up later. But for this, get it down to that 250 word maximum and use those words too. I know we talk about maximums. As you can probably tell, I talk a lot. And so I can write a lot, but we also have gotten applications that is one sentence, and that is just too lazy. In fact, we received a response. It still angers me to no end, but there was a painter from your state that said Michelangelo was never asked to write an artist statement, and that's what he wrote. I bet you can imagine that person did not get a grant. You have to take it seriously, and you have to be thoughtful about your responses. It doesn't have to be a perfect response, but just a thoughtful response. Next, you guys are probably like, is it this person? Is it this private? Is that person? We all know that kind of person. It's an archetype. Although that was literally a person. Next slide. I don't know if you all have heard of Simon Sinek and the Golden Circle. Simon Sinek had a very famous TED Talk. It's like 7 minutes long. I urge you to check it out. But it was this book. It's based off a book he wrote called Start With Why. And it really changed my perspective on a lot of things. And I think we often think in reverse order. It's like, what am I doing? I'm making a film. How am I going to do it? I'm going to assemble a team and we're going to go out and do it. Why am I doing it? You know? And so what would it be like if we reinvented this? Why am I making this art? Is it because I want it to make it beautiful? Make the world beautiful? Do I want to make change in this community? Then how am I going to make change in that community? How am I going to make that community more beautiful? And then what am I going to do to make that community or space more beautiful? Maybe I'll make a mural that's, I don't know, collaborated with a poem that's written by the community children, right? I don't know. I'm just brainstorming ideas. But thinking in different, 15 minutes left. Oh man, David, shut up. All right. So start with why. All right, next slide. So work samples. This is paramount. Show your best, highest quality work. These are practice-based grants. We want to see your greatest hits. If it is fuzzy, if it is too pixelated, it's not going to make it. It's not going to make it into the final rounds. Choose your greatest hits and make sure it is as shiny and high as resolution as humanly possible. Okay. And if you're not doing this now, put the money into documentation. It is so worth it. You will never regret getting good documentation of your work. Kyle.
I'm sorry to jump on you like that, David. But I just also want to say, as an artist myself, this is an area that I can kind of struggle with because I have a lot of, personal attachments to certain bodies of work, but that those bodies of work or the documentation of that work may not show me in the best light. So I think this is a great moment. What's the phrase, like to kill your darlings sometimes, and you have to sort of like make some tough decisions about which work you really want to show and which work really will tell us the best story about who you are and why you deserve this grant.
Right. And show them to your friends too. I think another way is to show your samples to people you like and who like you, and show them to someone who's maybe your frenemy, who's going to tell you the truth or tell you something you might not want to hear, and then take it with a grain of salt. But you get a good it's some easy market research, right? Next slide. So we really get into the nitty-gritty on the work samples, and there's a lot of information on our website about this that goes further deeper into here. I'm going to kind of slide through here, but include a total of 5 artwork samples. Okay, uploaded or provided as URL links. I think URL links for video and performers, those are often more reliable than attaching an MOV file, because not everybody has accessibility, equal internet access. All uploaded files should be titled with your name and the name of the project. I do not want to see any files that say DOC 3994Q, right? That's lazy. Put your name on it. Next slide. You can mix and match. Someone said that you have maybe you have some literary work, but also you have some songwriter work, or you have some video work. That's fine. We expect that. We run into that a lot with multidisciplinary works that have different aspects. So you've got 5 work samples, you've got 5 minutes. So here's how you can kind of jiggle those together to create that. And if you have further questions about that, we have a hotline where you can call and set up a time with us, and we can walk and talk you through all of that. Austin, I think I saw your hand up. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I put it up because I had a quick question and then I realized maybe I should just let you do your thing and save my questions until the end. So I put it down real quick.
Okay, we'll come back to you. I just wanted you to know you were seen. All right.
Yeah,
next
no
slide.
rush at all. I can wait till the end. I just wanted to ask something, but by all means, do your thing. Thank you for acknowledging me.
Of course, of course. All right, next slide. You guys, I think the work sample summary is the unsung hero of every grant proposal spot. You know, every grant proposal is like, you only get 100 words, you only get 50 words, you only get whatever words. This, you've got your work sample, which will speak for itself, but your work sample summary, you've got a whole other document where I'm going to talk a little bit more about my film. In this film, I wanted to do this, and I collaborated with the conservation district. I worked with the community members to ascertain the best spaces, whatever. You can really give a lot more information that you might not be able to give in your artist statement or in any other part of this. And when it gets competitive, here's the spot to add some details and give some nuance, be that, your website address, the medium, the dimensions, when you completed it, who your collaborators were, your inspiration, the relevance of the work. Maybe it was created when George Floyd was murdered. Maybe it was created when something else happened during COVID, whatever it is. But to give like that extra information can really give it a different context. As a filmmaker or performer, video titles, please give the panelists the time codes that you want to see, because you might have a 20-minute dance part, but you only want people to see from 1:30 to 2:40. Let them know. Yeah, so anyway, utilize that work sample summary. I think it's just the unsung hero, and it can make a difference when it comes down to splitting hairs, okay? Next slide. Okay, this is big, and I really want you guys to think about it, pray about it. Your narrative questions. All the other stuff is pretty standard, but the narrative questions are much more specific, and this is where you can really show yourself. Next slide. So there are four, maybe five questions. We want to know about your creative practice evolution. Austin, you were talking about painting, and now you're working to move to a mural. We want you to explain the evolution of your creative practice over the previous few years. Austin, my God, it sounds just written for you. What work have you been pursuing? How has the work evolved? Why has it evolved in that way? And have you faced challenges or constraints in making that work? It is the constraint in being able to scale up from a painting to a giant wall on a building. I don't know, Austin, I'm picking on you just as an example, but that goes for everybody. The professor, David, your practice is evolving because it kind of has to, right? So that's a challenge. That's a legitimate challenge. Next slide. Future of your creative practice. This is where you get to really become envisioneers and think about, where do you want your creative practice to be in 5 years? And then, how do you determine and measure the success in your practice? Are you a successful artist if you get a grant? Are you a successful artist if 500 people come to your gallery opening? Are you a success if you are personally pleased and proud of what you put out there? All of those things are measures of success. And no one else's success should be your own measure of success, right? Next slide, fund use. So if you're awarded the $10,000 artist grant, how do you intend to use these funds to further your artistic practice? That's probably the easiest after you figure out the question before, right? Next question.
Actually, can I jump in on this one just very quickly?
Of course.
And what's really exciting about this grant, right, is that this is a practice-based grant and not a project-based grant, as David shared with us at the beginning of this. And so this use of funds, like you can really be truthful here, and you can really think about what you need to support your career. So for somebody on this call, that may be that I need to support, I need to put this money towards childcare so that I can have time to go to my studio and create the work, right? This could also be, I need to buy 300 canvases. So you can really be specific and really let us know like what it is that you need as an artist and how you intend to use this money. I think you can really think broadly about how to answer this question. Just wanted to be clear about that.
I'm so glad you added that example, right? I mean, we really look at the artist as a whole person. You are not just a filmmaker. You are not just a silversmith. We are mothers. We are brothers. We are, colleagues, boyfriends, all those things. We had one person who applied and they wanted to use the money to buy a car because they were doing a lot of social practice work, and getting around to different communities to do that would have helped them. They didn't get it, but it was a compelling argument. David, you raised your hand.
Yeah. When you mentioned like the specific idea of, you might need it for child support or something of that nature, could it be a broader, like general life need? I don't know how to put that exactly, but
general operating costs.
Yeah, just there you go. Yeah. And something because, the materials or, for me, it might be, I have a studio, but I have to pay rent on it. So it's one of those things where like, that's obvious. But then, of course, I won't be employed anymore as a professor. So it'll be one of those situations where now I've got to switch gears and, my general operating needs will be kind of glaring at me a little more. And so that'll be, anyway, I guess the question is just to be a little more broad, or is it better to be real specific on that with, exactly what I'm going in to use every little cent for?
I don't
think you have to go
down
into
to the
specific details unless you are so inclined. But I think general, this would be partially used for studio, to keep my studio practice space, as well as general operating income.
Right. We can't make art if we don't have food on the table, right? So all of that goes into your career.
Thank you.
Great question. All right, next. So professional development, and explain how participating in this retreat and learning alongside a group of your peers and accessing one-on-one mentoring sessions with any of the 50 artist peer facilitators, how that will be beneficial to the development of your creative practice. And then think about what strengths you will bring to share with your peers. Everybody has a strength. We do this exercise called, now I've lost the name of it. It's like, what do you need and what can you share? And it's like, we often don't ask for what we want. We don't, because we'll just do it ourselves. We take care of ourselves. And this exercise gives us an opportunity, say, I'm really good at public speaking. Well, Kyle sucks at public speaking. He doesn't. He's really good at it. But he might have something that I have. He's really good at dance, and I'm not. Secretly, I am. But we could learn that from each other, right? And so what kind of, maybe you're a good fundraiser. Maybe you're a good community activator. Maybe you're really good at websites or proofreading or teaching silversmithing, classes on painting. What are some of those strengths that you would be able to bring to share, and what do you want? And I will say, we had a grant that we offered, and at the first after the professional retreat weekend, one person said, I don't want this. This is not what I want. After we had been very clear that the professional development, this retreat is part of that. So if that is not for you, be honest with yourself, because it takes an opportunity away from someone. And we'd rather know and it's a hard truth, but every truth is a gift. And so be honest about what you would like from this experience. Okay. So how this is reviewed, obviously artistic merit. You've demonstrated your artistic excellence in those high resolution work samples and program readiness. You will have the desire to advance your career and deepen their practice, just like that question that we just talked about. And then the impact of the funding on your practice. How will you define the ways in which this will impact your career and your creative practice? Right? David, I'm thinking of you, it's a bridge. If you're in a place of a transition, for anyone as a transition, the impact on the practice is allowing you space for experimentation and risk and helping to build a bridge across what could be troubled waters, right? Next slide. I think this is one of the coolest things, and this is not usually how it goes. Our panel review process. We hire artists and art professionals to serve as panelists. We're not interested in having bankers and billionaires on our panels. We want people who are in the game, who are on the field with you all. So these working independent artists, these panelists, will work independently, and they will evaluate each application using our review criteria. We pay our panelists. You'd be surprised how many panelists are not paid. And they go through a equity, DEIA training, diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, anti-racism. And we review implicit bias documents and video, read our equity and diversity statement, as well as our Mid-America strategic plan and our values. And we affirm this review prior to beginning the panel process. Then this is a new one. Applications with the highest degree of consensus will then enter into a lottery process, from which 25 grantees will be drawn to represent a balanced cohort, including a diversity of gender, age, ethnicity, geography, and artistic discipline. This slide is also available and more articulated on our website. What I've noticed and what we've noticed in our panel review, generally, it's about a third are non-competitive, a third are okay, and a third are awesome. It generally breaks out that way. And so we will get it down to a very small number of, every time I'm saying we're giving out $250,000 this year, there will easily be 50 artists that should get this money, right? But it's a way of being as equitable as possible within that process. Okay. We are at an hour. I know Jade saw, I think we're at the end here. Next slide. So applications are currently open. They opened on January 9th. Go there and open it up and just print it out and get those questions stewing in your brain. Again, February 24th is the deadline. We will be reviewing and adjudicating the panels in March and April. Neither Kyle, Jade, nor I are on any of the panels. So even if you're really sweet to us, we can't do anything about it. And then in May, we will announce the awards. June 24th and 25th is the retreat weekend. And that is the same time when everyone will get their money. Next slide. So pro tips, get out a Word document, go print off that application on the website for the Catalyze, first item of business. And then I want you to get a Word document, wherever you like to do it, cut and copy those questions over onto that Word document, and then set yourself a timer for 10 minutes, and then just write out your answers to that question and just see what happens, and then save it, and then move on to the next prompt and do the same thing. And you can literally do this in an hour and get at least a really solid rough draft. Okay. Once you have that document signed and sealed and how you like it, then copy and paste it over into the actual online application form. Do not ever compose on an online application form, because technology will always fail you, or it will cut and copy and jumble up weird and look terrible. Again, I've learned these all the hard way. Okay. Verify that all the files you are uploading are each less than 1 MB in size, labeled with your name and item type. All of the URLs are accessible to public. I had a Vimeo link that I thought was open to the public. It wasn't. That just recently happened to me. And as you're working in the form, save frequently. Do that on your Word document as well. Jade, you were about to say something, I think.
I was going to say exactly what you just said, just to save, because that is an option.
Save.
Box at the top of the application you can click, which will save your progress.
Yes.
And one little thing to look for, if you are trying to upload files that are larger than that size, even if you think you've saved, it won't end up saving that progress. So make sure that your files are ready to go before you start to upload, because that sometimes can cause a little bit of a snag.
Like I said, we're all available. We can click onto the next slide. Ask questions, do the research, start early, and don't take it personally. It's almost like the 4 agreements, right? But really, start now while it's fresh, while you have that momentum, enthusiasm. Go download that application and get it started. I remember I had to think about questions a lot before I started to put it down in paper, and I would share. If you share it with someone who knows what you do, share it with someone who doesn't really know what you do. And the easiest way to edit is to read it aloud. So once you've typed it all out, read it aloud, because then when a word comes out of your mouth and you're like, that sounded really stupid, that's your gut being your best proofreader. And the second best way to edit and to realize if you've had any typos is to hit submit. That will always alert you to any typos. Also, that's happened to me. Austin, you're on camera. Hi, Austin. You raise your hand. What's up?
Hey. So I just figured I would pop through this question I had earlier. If now's a good time for a quick question.
Yeah, I think the next slide is Q&A, actually.
Okay, I saw at the top it said that we were in Q&A. Or it says Q&A at the top of my screen. So I wanted to make sure I didn't like wait it out until you said bye and everybody logged off and I was holding my question. So mine's just kind of a quick, maybe a technicality or tedious thing. Being mostly a painter, I have a lot of work on canvas. I plan to submit a few of the murals I've done, but I also want to showcase some of my more personal studio work. I know a quick way to get yourself cut off is, by not following the laid out rules. And I've done something on an application before where it's like five examples of your work. But I work in series. So like one of my recent series are watercolors that are like 11 by 19. So fairly small, but there's 9 of them. And they all go together and they're like different versions of the same image. And they're meant to be seen all hung together in like a 3 by 3 square. So for a different application, I post it. I use that as one example of my work. And I feel like it was negatively received. Like I was trying to kind of cheat the system and get in a bunch of examples. So I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on that, because I have a series of 6 and a series of 9 in my studio right now that I really like, and I feel like kind of showcase different sides of what I do. But, I just wanted to clarify how y'all felt about that.
I feel like if they're in a series and they were all sitting and, and they all were like part of a comprehensive work, it would be fine to have a shot of them. I don't feel like that is necessarily cheating, but if they're all basically the same, I would select the best one from each of your series. And, you know, I really treat it like putting together a greatest hits album. It's like, if I had a greatest, you know, pick the ones that show your greatest breadth and more of you. Personally, I wouldn't disqualify, but like I said, Kyle and Jade and I are not on the panel.
Okay.
To another panel process, and every panel, you know, brings their own lifestyles and perspectives and histories. And so
I would say that's a great moment for the work sample summary as well, to sort of like include some information about that in your description of the work.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So like the one in particular that I'm kind of speaking on is they're all pretty cool by themselves. They're like pictures of a screaming face, but they're all, in my mind, have like one is screaming out of hunger, one's screaming out of pain, one's more like yawning and tired. They all kind of look the same until you look at them side by side. And that's what I think actually makes them cool. So picking out the greatest one, and my favorite one is often, like I sell prints of them all. And it's always interesting to see who is everybody's favorite, because my least favorite is oftentimes the only one that I'll sell at a show. So maybe I'll just, you know, as I'm continuing to put my application together, kind of work it up and see how it feels to me and how it sits. But I'd rather play it safe than do anything that's going to perturb one of the judges, you know.
Well, we definitely believe in taking risks. So,
okay.
I mean, you know, I wouldn't do that with every single work sample. I wouldn't put like 9 images in, you know, in 5 different ones, because I would feel like that's excessive and taking advantage of the system. But if it's like in one series is this collective that is very important to tell the story that you want, it's not going to be the same in the next series. It should not be the same in the next series, you know. So I think you can kind of find some balance in that.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the time and answering that.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think we're next slide is Q&A maybe, or no, next slide is how we can give support. So artist services at ma.org is how to reach any of us. Like I said earlier, you can schedule a time for a one-on-one application support session with us. There's a Calendly link where you can go in and sign up. It's 20 minutes. Please do us the favor of coming in with specific questions that you know that you want to have. Don't call and be like, I don't know, you know, be specific. We want to be able to answer your questions. And I know that we're going to be getting a ton of questions. I try to think of 3 questions I want answered before I go talk to anybody. So maybe that's a good way to think about it. We're open Mondays noon to 1, Tuesdays noon to 1 and 5 to 6, Wednesdays noon to 1, and Thursdays noon to 1 and 5 to 6. That's Central Standard Time. I think we're all in that standard time, and we're glad to talk to anyone. Yeah, Jade.
If we need to schedule something outside of those hours, just send us an email at the Artist Services. We're happy to accommodate.
And next slide. This is our team. We're real cute. And we're all artists, and these are the smiling faces that will be on the other end of the call when you call and have any questions for us. Again, artist services at ma.org. Reach out anytime and hit up that Calendly link. The next slide, I think, is the Q&A. I think we might have answered questions. Any other questions? I wanted to say hi to Ebony and Emily. Thank you for joining us too. And next slide. If you would like, we're going to be doing some info sessions live. I'm going to be down in y'all's neighborhood live and in person on Wednesday, February 8th, the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th in Hot Springs and Pine Bluff, in Little Rock, and up in Argenta. So if you want to come again, learn more, that's totally fine. Tell your friends about it. All right, next slide. I think is the final slide. You can learn more about us at ma.org/Catalyze, and that has all of the information and more. Again, I want to thank my awesome colleagues, Kyle Mullins and Jade Osborne, and thank you all for being present and being with us. Go forth, make incredible art, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much.